Hi folks, and welcome back to the Grumpy Gamer channel. That's it, you guessed it. This is that channel where you get to see this old git talk about modern games. So, for today's in-car comments, first thing I've got to say is Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you had a fantastic Christmas break. I hope you played some fantastic games and got some fantastic presents for Christmas. Me, I was still flipping ill, as some of you might be aware. Before Xmas, I had the dreaded man flu, and by God did it go on and on and on. So it just wrecked Christmas for us. All the visitors we had to come over for Christmas, that had to be cancelled because we just couldn't risk giving them the dreaded lurgy. So I've literally only just started recovering the last few days. I'm starting to feel better. But anyway, enough of that nonsense. What I wanted to talk about today. Well, while I was off poorly, feeling sorry for myself, I was talking to quite a lot of people on social media, and we were talking about obviously VR, and somebody brought up the point that they're having trouble disconnecting from VR. So he said that when he goes to sleep, he literally dreams he's in those worlds again, even to the point someone else said that they found that when they're back in the real world, they almost think that they can pick stuff up or do stuff. So they're having problems with disassociation. And this got me thinking about, okay, so where is this going to lead us in the future? Now, back in the 90s, you may recall that politicians were going absolutely mental with games like Mortal Kombat, and they said that this is going to make our children violent and turn them into murderers and blah, 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 blah. Obviously, they didn't have a clue what they're talking about, because there have been lengthy studies and there shows no correlation between violent video games and being violent in real life. However, that's different. That's flat screen gaming. Now, I've even over the years, I've experienced bits like this myself. I remember when the Gears of War games 1, 2 and 3, they were popular when they first came out. Me and my friends used to play literally every night for hours and hours and hours. And I'd find if literally as soon as I finished gaming, I'd switch off and go straight to bed. Well, I'd shut my eyes to go to sleep, and I could still see my character Marcus running around the maps in front of me. So, but that didn't last very long. I'd fall asleep. Next day, I'd be absolutely fine. So obviously, it's still running around in my head. But that's about it. Other than I know when I played Death Stranding through to get the platinum, because some of the scenery looks very similar to where I live, I'd find myself driving along and I'd have to double take thinking I'm seeing strands everywhere. So I know how games get into your brain, but again, they're flat screen games. VR's a very, very different beast. And as it's getting more and more realistic, you look at games like Resident Evil 4 Remake, just the graphics in there are so good, so getting to the point of believability. Is this going to cause us issues in the future? We know that VR is being used at the moment in mental health situations, so it has a massive positive effect on people. But what about the downsides? You know, as VR gets better and better and better, it's going to be harder and harder to be able to tell the difference between reality and virtual reality. Think about it at the minute now when we play virtual reality, it's like we've got a snorkel mask on because we can see the edges of the headset. But I'm a firm believer that as we go forwards, eventually you're going to have a headset. It'll be a very lightweight headset. I think I've said before that literally it'll then cover your entire peripheral vision. So you won't see any sides of any headset. You will just see like what we see in reality. You're still going to know you're in virtual reality. You're going to be holding controllers. Yeah, of course you are. But all the time with the technology getting better, you know, now you can get haptic suits. You can even get haptic gloves that have little motors in them, so that when you pick up, say, an apple in a game, you can actually feel that apple because of the wires and the motors that put resistance onto your fingers. So all the while it's getting better and better, like I say. What's next? We're going to have, I'm sure, in a haptic vest, you'll have a little pocket that has little vials of different liquids that then can be mixed together to make different smells. So you imagine if you're in a game and you're in a building, as you burst out the building, you go out into a massive, great big field, and you might be able to smell the grass. You might be able to smell the wheat. You know, when you go in a building, you might be able to smell it's all musty. When you're in a horror game, you might be able to smell the blood, which would be, that would be pretty horrible, to be honest. So yeah, I can see where VR is gonna go in the future, but how is that going to affect people, especially people? I mean, I consider myself pretty sane, pretty normal, you know, pretty stable. But for people who maybe do have mental health issues, maybe are a little bit unstable, or like with hypnosis, easily led, easily influenced, how is that going to affect them? Are we going to eventually get people running around who can't tell the difference between reality and fiction? Are we just going to get people walking up to other people in the street, just punching them out, decking them, because they're having trouble disassociating? Or even worse, people then leaping out of buildings or something like that because they think they can fly. Or I know that sounds crazy, but this is what I think we've got to look at in the future as it gets more and more realistic. I mean, I'm really excited, obviously, for VR as it develops. And the thing is with modern technology, and any technology really, it's always moving forwards. Technology is always moving forwards. But now more and more we're finding technology is accelerating. So it's like what might have taken 10 years ago to develop, now only takes 2. So all the time it's accelerating. So where VR is going to be in only 5 years, we have no idea where it's going to be and how realistic it's going to be. So is that going to cause issues within the VR world? Are we going to have these idiot politicians jumping back in saying, oh, VR is going to be the end of the world, people are going to turn out to be homicidal maniacs? I mean, granted, you're always going to get homicidal maniacs, you're always going to get unstable people. But will the future of VR be at a point where it's going to push people over the edge into insanity, if you like, where they just can't disassociate? What do you think, folks? I think this is a very interesting subject. And like I say, talking to these people on social media, wow, I was quite shocked at what some people were saying about how they're having difficulty disassociating with it. I mean, it does lead on to another point of, with VR getting better and better and better, to the point where we won't be able to tell the difference whether we're in a simulation or in reality. That made me think that, how do we know we're not already in a simulation? Now, I know that sounds crazy. It just reminds me of the movie The Matrix. But how do we know? How do we know we're not already in a simulation? You'll probably say, oh, well, because we can't take a headset off. No, but in the future, VR is going to change. So in the future, we have no idea what the parameters of VR are going to be. So like I say, how do we know we're not already in a simulation? We don't. Plain and simple, we don't. Anyway, enough of that crazy talk. Let me know what you guys think. Pop it down in the comments. As always, I like to read people's comments and I try and reply as much as I can when I read them. So please, like I say, let me know what you think on this subject. Do you think that with great power comes great responsibility? What's going to happen with VR in the future? So that's it for me today, folks. Hope you enjoyed that video, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. So until next time, I'll see you guys on the other side. Adios.